Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inconvenient Truths. I'm your host, Jennifer Zeng. Yesterday's sudden death of former Chinese Premier Li Keqiang, who left office just 7 months ago, has caused huge shockwaves at home and abroad, and rumors of various conspiracy theories are flying at a time when China's political situation is extremely unstable. Today, let's sort out the three anomalies and two important questions about Li Keqiang's sudden death, as well as its potential impact on China's political landscape. Let's start with the three major anomalies of Li Keqiang's sudden death. According to official media reports, Li Keqiang died of a sudden heart attack, and after all-out rescue efforts to save his life, he passed away at 0:10 on October 27, 2023, in Shanghai at the age of 68. The news about his death was released by Xinhua News Agency 8 hours later. The first anomaly is that medical professionals have pointed out that the top-level CCP leaders enjoy excellent medical conditions. They can even easily undergo organ transplants from healthy young individuals. Given the current medical conditions, the likelihood of sudden death due to a heart attack is very low. Moreover, there were no prior reports indicating that Li Keqiang had heart problems. The average lifespan of top CCP leaders has generally been long. For instance, Mao Zedong lived to 83, Deng Xiaoping to 92, and Jiang Zemin to 96. Looking at previous Chinese premiers, Zhou Enlai lived to 78, Hua Guofeng to 86, Li Peng to 90, Zhu Rongji is currently 95 and still alive, and Wen Jiabao is 81 and still alive. The former Politburo Standing Committee member Song Ping is now 106 years old and still living. So why did Li Keqiang at the age of only 68 die suddenly? The second anomaly is the timing and method of the announcement of his death. The news of his death was published at 9:17 a.m. Beijing time on October 27th. The announcement was only 77 words long, mentioning that he had been resting in Shanghai recently, suffered a sudden heart attack, and despite all-out rescue efforts, he passed away. The message ended with the words "arbitrary to follow" in brackets, indicating that the announcement was made without the official obituary being ready. About 6 hours later, Xinhua News Agency released his obituary. However, unlike the usual practice of turning the website color to gray when announcing the deaths of top leaders, the website remained in its usual colors. Some websites, such as the Gansu Province CCP Committee's website, even used red-colored fonts for the title of the obituary. In traditional Chinese culture, red signifies joyful occasions. So every year during the official Chinese New Year Gala, the stage is primarily designed in red to present happiness. This is the first time that I've seen an official website using red fonts for the title when announcing the death of a top leader. Last year, when former leader of the CCP Jiang Zemin passed away, the usual red-themed People's Daily changed its color to gray to announce his death as a sign of mourning. Excuse me. The CCP also arranged a special plane to transport his body from Shanghai to Beijing. A grand ceremony was held to welcome his body. When the body left Shanghai, the public was organized to bid farewell along the street. However, There was no such treatment for Li Keqiang, whose body was transported by a car. This is said to be the arrival in Beijing, which appeared to be quiet at night, with only temporary traffic control to allow the convoy to pass quickly. Of course, Li Keqiang was only the number 2 person in the CCP and cannot be compared to Jiang Zemin, who was the number 1 leader. But even if he was only the number 2 person, announcing a person's death in red characters is extremely insulting and definitely not fit in with Chinese customs and traditions. So this is highly abnormal. Another strange phenomena is when someone did a site search on Xinhua's website using the word obituary, he or she was surprised to get an obituary for Li Keqiang's death posted on February 3rd this year. But the content was only the 2 Chinese characters for test, repeated many times. So this is the cell phone version. This is the website version of test obituary of Li Keqiang's death with the same content. This search result was posted on social media this morning around 5 a.m. EST. When I searched again a few hours later, I could no longer see this result, so it may have been technically manipulated so that this result could no longer be displayed. The third major anomaly is that, take a look at this picture and post. This is the X account, Xi's Moment, which is said to be managed by Xi Jinping's daughter Xi Zeming's team and specializes in posting news about Xi Jinping. So this account suddenly posted this picture and a simple code in Chinese and English just 20 minutes or so after Li Keqiang's death was announced. The text goes, "Men of insight see the trend, while men of wisdom ride it," with the hashtag Chinese wisdom. The image shows a group of birds flying over a high mountain as the sun rises, and a wise man confidently watching the birds fly with great vigor. Obviously, the posting of this sentence and image signifies that the poster is in a very good mood, even celebrating a promising future. Why post such a meaningful image and text only 20 minutes after Li Keqiang's death was announced? Let's take a look at some of the content usually posted by this account, which is basically of current affairs and news type, promoting Xi Jinping's ideas and great achievements, with very little other content. So, this post of the rising sun and the birds flying high is very unusual. Now, let's talk about 2 major questions related to Li Keqiang's death. The first question is, did Li Keqiang die of illness or was he murdered? As soon as the news of Li Keqiang's death was released, most overseas Chinese on the X platform thought his death was suspicious, and some even rumored that he was poisoned by Xi Jinping. Of course, there are also people who believe that Li Keqiang was no longer in a position of power and could not have posed a threat to Xi Jinping, and therefore Xi Jinping had no motive to kill him. Those who hold the opposite view believe that Xi Jinping did have a motive to kill him. The biggest The biggest motive is that because Xi is so unpopular, there are people in the party who want to get him out of power, and Li Keqiang has a relatively good reputation, so he could potentially be a banner to rally anti-Xi forces. Some have even rumored that Wall Street and elites are trying to manipulate things to bring Li Keqiang to power to handle the economy so that Wall Street elites could continue making big money in China as before. Therefore, Xi Jinping's elimination of Li Keqiang would prevent this from happening. Others say she got rid of Li Keqiang out of jealousy. Let's look at two videos. This video is from March this year. Before Li Keqiang left his post, he gave a farewell speech to hundreds of staff in the State Council office of China. He said, "Today the sun is shining brightly like a spring day, and people often say people are doing things while the heaven is watching, and it seems that heaven is watching us today." So at that time, people believed that when he said people are doing things while the heaven is watching, his words were directed at Xi Jinping, and he was expressing his dissatisfaction with Xi Jinping. See, people are responding to his speech. So you could see he's somehow popular with the staffs of the State Council. Now watch this video. So this is Li Keqiang on August 30th of this year, when he was visiting the famous Mogao caves in Dunhuang. The people shouted at him enthusiastically. They are saying, "Greetings, Premier." August 30th is less than 2 months ago. At that time, he looked in good shape, not like someone who was dying or sick. So if Li Keqiang was still welcomed by the people so warmly after he left office, would it make Xi Jinping extremely unhappy? In addition, during Li Keqiang's 10 years as premier, he often made noises that were different in tone from Xi Jinping. For example, after Xi Jinping had just boasted that he had lifted all Chinese out of poverty, Li Keqiang said in front of Chinese and foreign journalists that 600 million people in China earned only 1,000 yuan per month. That was like slapping Xi Jinping in the face. Also, while Xi Jinping wanted to go back to the Mao's era, Li Keqiang said during an inspection tour that the Yangtze River and the Yellow River were not flow backward, indicating that reform and opening up policy should continue and not be reversed. This was also in open opposition to Xi Jinping. Therefore, did all this annoy Xi Jinping to the point of wanting to get him killed? I don't want to jump to conclusions here, but feel free to leave us a comment if you have any thoughts regarding this. Judging from the fact that the news of his death was rushed out before his obituary was ready, I tend to think that Xi Jinping was in a hurry to let the world know that Li Keqiang was dead, so that those who wanted to use him as a banner to gather opposition could give up this idea. Usually it takes days, sometimes months, for the CCP to announce the deaths of their leaders, as there is a lot to consider regarding the wording of the obituary, the possible social impact after announcing the death, and how to make arrangements for his funeral and so on. All must be considered before announcing the death. Li Keqiang was just a retired leader. It wouldn't hurt anything if they waited for a few more hours to publish the news about his death. Why such a rush? It did look very suspicious to me. It is also worth mentioning that before the CCP's 20th National Congress, some overseas dissidents promoted the concept of Xi Dang Li Up in a very high profile way. Xi Dang Li Up means Xi Jinping should step down and Li Keqiang should be promoted to the top leader of the CCP. Some even created a Xi Dang Li Up movement, saying that there were people within the party working to make Li Keqiang the top leader and to get rid of Xi Jinping. At that time, the so-called Xi Dang Li Up concept or movement attracted a lot of attention. However, of course, as a matter of fact, at the 20th Congress, Hu Jintao, the former head of the CCP, who belonged to the so-called Youth League faction, was forcefully taken away from the venue in full view of the public. All major members of the Youth League faction, including Li Keqiang himself, were out of picture. Xi Jinping won a great victory in the power struggle, and the so-called Xi Dang Li Up movement became a joke or a rumor, and many people laughed at it. But it did have attracted a great deal of attention both at home and abroad West, and raised the expectation of many people who were looking forward to Xi's stepping down. Therefore, although this Xi Dang Li Up campaign failed, it probably planted the seed of hatred against Li Keqiang in Xi's mind, and even made Xi feel extremely threatened. The second question related to Li Keqiang's death is, will his death trigger social unrest? As we all know, in April 1976, the death of former Chinese Premier Zhou Enlai triggered the famous so-called April 5th movement, in which people gathered in Tiananmen Square to mourn Zhou Enlai and at the same time express their discontent with the Gang of Four, Mao Zedong, and the Cultural Revolution. This movement was quickly suppressed at the time, but only 6 months later, a coup within the CCP took place. Members of the Gang of Four, including Mao Zedong's wife, were arrested, and the Cultural Revolution, which had lasted for 10 years, came to an end. Chinese society has since entered into a new so-called reform and opening up era. Then, in April 1989, Hu Yaobang, the head of the CCP, who was known as a pro-reform person, died, and people once again gathered at Tiananmen Square to mourn him. And this movement quickly evolved into the months-long Tiananmen democracy movement, in which millions of people in Beijing and across China took part. Then, on June 4th, the Tiananmen massacre shocked the world. The current Chinese society, as in 1976 and 1989, has built up a tremendous amount of discontent with the society and the status quo. So it is natural to ask, were Li Keqiang's death, like Zhou Enlai and Hu Yaobang's deaths, trigger social upheaval that will bring about great changes? What we have seen now so far is that outside Li Keqiang's former residency in Hefei City in Anhui Province, people are already going to send flowers and express their condolence. So these are flowers placed by people outside Li Keqiang's former residence. And after nightfall, there are more flowers. It later became a flower road. However, on the website, the CCP has begun to regulate speech. Li Keqiang and mourning Li Keqiang have become sensitive words that have been blocked. So this is a scene at the Li Keqiang's former residence in Hefei City, Anhui Province. It's relatively still very peaceful, and many flowers are already there. Well, this is a notice issued by Shanghai Jiaotong University regarding Li Keqiang's death. It says that all units and departments are requested to do a good job of campus security and stability in the near future and ensure that public opinion and other aspects are safe and orderly. Relevant mourning activities will be arranged uniformly after instructions from the higher ups. We should pay attention to the students' views on this matter and resolutely disallow any inappropriate comments on and offline. We will pay attention to the movement of students going out tomorrow and the next 2 days. Keep a close eye on any gathering of mourning activities on the campus and report immediately when we find any clues. The Student Affairs Department will gather twice a day for 3 consecutive days to report and discuss the situations, etc. This is a similar notice from Hainan University. In other words, the CCP authorities are very concerned about the death of Li Keqiang becoming a trigger for a major social incident and have already begun to lay out a tight plan. How exactly will the incident develop? For the time being, we can only say let's pay close attention and wait to see. Finally, let's take a look at the expressions and body language of various figures when Hu Jintao was escorted out of the 20th National Congress last year. At that time, Hu Jintao patted Li Keqiang's shoulder and seemed to be saying, "I've tried everything I can, now you take care of yourself." Li Keqiang, on the other hand, looked embarrassed and seemed to be at a loss for words. At that time, he must not have thought that in less than a year's time, he would actually die before Hu Jintao, who was dragged away by force. Another main figure of the unique faction, Wang Yang, who sat next to Li Keqiang, pretended he saw or knew nothing about what was going on. Only Xi Jinping smiled as if he was saying to Li, "Now all is under my control and your guys just behave." Sadly enough, even Li Keqiang's Even Li Keqiang's obituary has become a propaganda tool for Xi Jinping. The last two paragraphs of the obituary say, in March 2023, after retiring from his leadership position, Comrade Li Keqiang firmly supported and backed the leadership of the party Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping and its core. The death of Comrade Li Keqiang is a major loss for the party and the country. We should turn grief into strength, unite more closely around the Central Committee with Comrade Xi Jinping and its core, hold high the great banner of socialism with Chinese characteristics, and fully implement Xi Jinping's thought of socialism with Chinese characteristics for the new era. Let's unite and strive for the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation, and so on. So this is the tragedy of being born in communist China. When alive, you don't know when you might be killed. After death, your eulogy might become a propaganda tool for your political opponents. Well, that's all for today. Please like, share, and comment on my videos. If you haven't already, subscribe to my channel or check your subscription status. Additionally, you can visit my website at jenniferzengblog.com for membership or donations to support my work. In these rapid changing times, I believe independent voices like mine are crucial. Thank you. Have a nice weekend and see you next time.